I know you've been waiting for this. We've gone through so much basic information, and today we are actually going to put everything together and do a full gel polish manicure, step by step. Hey guys, Liz from the Nail Hub, and I want to thank you for being so patient with me because I've been trying to go through so many things in preparation for our first full application lesson. I think it's really important to understand all the pieces that go into application before you actually attempt to do it. And so I hope that if you've had the chance to watch all of the videos leading up to today, you now feel very prepared with all of the different nuances that we've talked about, all right? So today we are going to do step-by-step, regular, basic gel polish, one color application, both using potted gel and also bottled gel. And we're gonna do one finger start to finish together so that we can actually practice our application. And I really encourage you guys to do this with me. Pause the video as we go through, do the application step by step, utilize everything that we've learned over the last several videos, and then I want you guys to see how your application goes. So you guys know everything about filing, base coat, what goes into how you use your brushes, your lamps, everything. So this should go extremely well. But I want you guys to practice this on your own nails or on a friend or a family member, and that way you can see how long the gel lasts without anything other than just the 3-step gel system. All right, let's get started. Okay, so I have my lovely assistant here. This is April Ryan in the silicone flesh. So anyway, this is my friend April Ryan's hand that she has made, which is really cool. It's actually a posable silicone hand, and I love using this for demoing, even though it is a little bit creepy, which I know you guys are probably gonna say, oh my God, Liz, that's creepy. It is actually awesome, and it's very realistic. It has a cuticle area here. It's just like a real finger, and because I still have gel on my nails and I don't want to do it too frequently, this has really come in handy to practice. So I am going to go through how we do step-by-step application of everything from base coat to color. So I'm going to start with the bottled application because I think that's probably the easiest. We are going to use the old school method that we already talked about of how we're going to prep the nail. So I always start by cleansing the nail. I want to get all the oil off of the client before I even start filing. I'm going to push back the cuticles. Make sure there's no dust and debris. I'm going to then file and shape the nail. And I can also go through the surface of the nail plate to remove any natural shine. Just nice and light. If you want to utilize a buffer to do this, you can absolutely do that as well. So if you have a nail file, great, or if you have a buffer, you can do that. Okay, so go through, remove all the natural shine. And then before we do our application, I'm gonna take my cleanser one more time. Squeegee side to side, really scrub that nail plate well and pull all of that down, okay? Also a good idea to clean underneath so that there's no oil, lotion, anything hiding up underneath the nail, and just really make sure that that's nice and dry. So the nail should look like this. It should be perfectly matte, chalky looking, and then we're gonna proceed with our base coat. So we're not gonna use any primers or anything. Let's just start with the most basic application because more, less is more, especially when we're learning how to do gel, and then we can talk about why we're gonna use different primers, different protein bonders later. But your gel system that you use, especially if you use a very high quality one, should already include all of the adhesion agents that you need. All right, so because this is a longer nail, I'm actually gonna start about 2/3 of the way down and pull the base coat all the way down the nail and get a nice wet layer or slip layer on my nail surface, and I can cap that as well while I'm working. And then I'm going to tip the hand down slightly. I'm going to use my bulldoze technique and shimmy that base coat up to the cuticle area. And I really tip my brush up and shimmy down the sides. So putting pressure on my brush, shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. leaving a very small space in between the gel and the cuticle area so that I don't touch skin. And then I just smooth that out. I'm using my reflection here, these nice straight lines, to check my application and make sure it's nice and smooth. I don't see any wiggliness in those reflections, so that looks pretty good. And then I'm gonna cure this for 30 seconds in my hybrid lamp. Okay, so I've got my base coat cured. I'm now gonna proceed with my color gel. And when I take my color gel out of the bottle, I'm going to scrape off the excess from the stem of the brush because I don't want a big dollop running down the brush. So I'm gonna scrape most of it off and try and get gel on only one side of my gel polish brush, even though it's the one that comes in the bottle. And again, I'm gonna start down here so that I don't accidentally flood the cuticle, and I'm gonna just work on getting the nail capped and getting a nice application on the bottom half of the nail. Actually, so you guys can see this better, I'm gonna put a white background so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm gonna start down here, just get a nice wet layer of gel on the nail to begin with. And then I'm going to bulldoze the product up to the cuticle area, tipping the finger slightly down so that I don't run the product up by the cuticle, and then drag that down. I can use these swooshing motions to bring it side to side, and then nice smooth application. And I just pull it down, and I can keep pulling. If I see any little bits of debris or fuzz in my gel polish, just keep pulling it down and it'll come right out. If you do have an area you want to clean, a great thing to have on hand is a typical Smileline or French manicure brush. Just put a teeny bit of alcohol on it. Alcohol much better than acetone because we don't want to actually eat the gel, we just want to clean it. And I can just easily swoop on the side to clean up any areas. I can also swoop around the cuticle area if I need to clean up any areas where I've touched. Okay, and again, looking at the reflection, making sure that my work is smooth. And then I'm gonna cure this for 30 seconds. I'm gonna apply my second coat. Same as the first, really concentrating to perfect any areas that I need to perfect. And I can even go maybe a teeny bit further on the second coat now that I have some cured product there. And just make sure I have a nice, clean, solid line. And again, if you accidentally touch, like I'm doing right now, just take your little manicure brush, dab the excess off first, and then just clean up the sides with some rubbing alcohol. Okay, like that. And then I'm going to apply my top coat. First applying a generous amount to just get the nail coated. And then again, making sure I cover all the way to the back of the color, the side walls, and down the nail, and then capping the free edge. If you do have any lumpiness, let's say you have a lump right here on the tip of the nail, the top coat is a great opportunity to fix that. So with your top coat brush, you can absolutely drag some of that product back into any area where you want to smooth it out. All I do is I touch the gel with my brush, and again, this would be this way, but I'm just showing you from the side. You can just touch your brush and drag the product down that mohawk area of the nail to really smooth it out, and that way you won't get any humps on the tip of the nail. You can also do this upside down, so if I turn my client's hand upside down, I can do that from the side. So I would just be doing it upside down and just making sure that that's perfect. And I do like to do that quite a bit when working on people, especially the very, very last coat. A lot of times I will turn the hand upside down and I will just look at it this way to make sure that that mohawk of gel, even if it's just top coat on a regular gel polish manicure, I do like to make sure it is as perfectly smooth as possible. So I will often turn my client's hand upside down, wait till that gel is perfectly centered down the center ridge of their nail, and I'll also check it from the side to make sure it has a nice apex. If it gets too extreme, just turn it over, wait for it to self-level a little bit more, and then you can go ahead and cure it. Okay, so I have my nail cured. I'm going to wet a clean wipe with alcohol. And when I cleanse this is very important. I'm going to put the wrap on, shimmy, shimmy side to side, and then I'm going to pull it straight down. I don't want to get any uncured top coat, the inhibition layer of my top coat up on the client's finger. So I'm going to do my best to not get that up onto her skin. And I'm just squeegeeing the inhibition layer off of her nail like so, okay? And then you should be left with a very shiny result. And from the side, even though this is a natural nail service, I can make sure that this is perfectly smooth. Give it even a teeny bit of an apex for my client, just using the base coat, 2 coats of color, and top coat. And again, I like to use the top coat layer to perfect that and make sure it's perfectly glossy smooth and I don't have any hump of product on the end of the nail. So you can absolutely make sure it's perfectly smooth. Okay, so that is our bottled gel polish application. And to finish the service, I do like to put a little bit of cuticle oil on. So I like to put a drop, and I don't touch the skin, I just use my dropper to put it on, and then you can rub this into the client's cuticle area. And then with a clean wipe, I can buff this in to make sure that their nail doesn't look super greasy and it's all nice and moisturized into their skin, like so, okay? So that is what I usually do for the end of the service. You can also do hot towel service if you're in a salon setting, but cuticle oil is a great thing to put on afterwards, or do a hand massage because you just did all of that drying stuff with the alcohol and everything, okay? So let's do, on this finger, let's do our potted gel application. Okay, so with our potted gel, again, we're gonna start, same process. We are going to cleanse all the oils off of the nail first, because if we file the nail with any natural oils on it, we could end up pushing them into the nail plate. So we want to cleanse the nail really well before we start our filing and our nail preparation. So I'm just going to file the free edge as if this were a real person. I can push back all the cuticles. And again, I'm doing this on one finger, but you would absolutely do this on all 4 fingers, and then typically I do thumbs separately. And then I go through the whole body of the nail, remove any natural shine, just very, very lightly, etching the surface, or I can use a buffer. I'm not doing both, I'm just showing you guys the option to do this is a 180 grit buffer, so if you want to use a buffer instead, you could, or you can use a nail file. I typically use a nail file because I can use the same nail file for the free edge as well as going through the surface of the nail, so it saves me on product. I don't have to worry about buying 2 things, I can just buy 1. But some people love buffers, so you can absolutely do that. Okay, and then once that is all done, I'm going to cleanse the nail one more time. And really, when I'm doing this, I am putting pressure. So I really like to scrub the nail plate and get any oil, debris, lotion, anything. And I do it underneath as much as I can as well. So this really helps to strip the nail of any oil or anything that's on there. Okay, then I am going to take my brush. And when I first start this, you'll notice, like with your brushes, when you keep them capped, sometimes they're a little bit stiff. So what I like to do is I take a little bit of my base coat and I just put it in my lid of my jar, and I call it warming up the bristles. So I just kind of get some gel into my bristles of my brush, and then I'm ready to apply my base coat. So I am going to take a little bit of base coat on my brush and just get the nail wet. Again, if it's a longer nail, I typically start towards the free edge of the nail, and then I'm going to really take my time to shimmy this into the nail plate. And this is one of the biggest reasons why I do love using potted gels, because I have so much control over the quantity of the gel. I have so much control over the pressure I put on my brush. Sometimes with the bottled products, it is, you know, quote unquote quicker, some people say. I disagree, but some people think, oh, it's more similar to nail polish, so it's something more comfortable for me. I just am so partial to potted gel because I just can control so much what I'm doing. So again, you're going to see a little bit of that natural texture on the nail coming through because I just need a very, very small amount. And I'm using my reflection, as you can see back in here. I can see where the shininess stops, and I've got that little perimeter of dry nail where the gel stops and I'm not touching skin. And I check side to side to make sure I've got my nail coated. So if I need to go a little bit closer on this side, and again, typically if you're right-handed, you want to rotate the finger and check because it's very hard for you to go this way with your right hand. So just rotate the finger, make sure, use your reflection. And again, now I've got that nice and coated on all the sides. Okay, and then make sure the free edge is coated as well and smooth that out so you don't have a hump of product. Okay, and that's going to cure for 30 seconds. All right, then I'm going to, since this is my clear gel brush, I'm going to clean that off and put my cap back on. And then the one I use for color is my flat brush. I love this brush. Okay, so I have my base coat on, and I'm going to use this lovely berry grape color. Okay. And again, I'm going to take a small amount from the center of the jar on one side of my brush. And we covered this in our last brush video, so it's important to watch that. And I'm just going to start depositing color halfway down the nail towards the free edge and just smoothing it out. And I'm just going to apply a very, very thin layer of color as my slip or wetting layer so that I have gel on the nail, and it's going to be that much easier to smooth everything out. So pushing and pulling and patting. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on my brush, just one nice even coat. Okay, and I can even go back and do a teeny bit more on this coat just to get one nice full, almost full coverage layer. The smoother and more perfect your first layer is, the better everything is going to look. If your first layer is really streaky, it's going to be very difficult for you to camouflage that with subsequent layers. So really make sure you do a good job on your first layer and it will look really nice. Depends on the brand you're using, but the brands I use, since they are solvent free and they cure really well, I can get away with almost full coverage on the first coat. And again, rotating the finger, I do this at the very end because I don't want the gel sitting on the finger and possibly running. This gel doesn't do that, but I like to pay attention to that. So I am going to get very, very close to the skin right before it goes in the lamp. And then I'm going to cure that for 30 seconds. A lot of times people ask me whether or not I do one finger at a time. Totally depends on the gel that I'm using. With these types of potted gels, when I have a lot of control, I find that I don't need to do one finger at a time. I can do 4 fingers, cure those, and then do the thumb separately. I typically do thumb separately. It's just, for me, it has always been the most successful and the biggest guarantee of success for my appointment. But if you are working with a gel that you want to be able to apply in thicker layers, or maybe it's a little bit thinner of a consistency and it does run, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing the pinky, ring, middle, you know, pointer, going back and forth one finger at a time. My only recommendation would be put your lamp in the center if you only own one lamp so that your client can be switching their hands, or get 2 lamps so that you can always be working while the client is curing one of their hands. And it really doesn't add that much time if you're actually having them always do something while you're working. I find that I can only apply a nail in about 20 seconds, so I can't really paint faster than the lamp can go anyway. So I do find that one finger at a time gives me optimal control, avoids a lot of mistakes, and it really doesn't add any more time than if I had done all 5 fingers on each hand. Okay, so I've got my first coat of color. I'm going to do my second coat of color. And on the the second coat, it's less about opacity of the color, it's more about the smoothness for me and the perfection of the cuticle area. And I do find that once you have some cured color on, it's much easier to maneuver and get really, really close to the skin on the second layer. So I'm going to really make sure that everything is perfectly coated. And since I'm using a potted gel, I have more control over kind of my application. So I always check from the side to make sure I don't have a hump of product here on the tip of my nail. If you do have a hump of product, you can just touch it and drag it back. Okay, just use the little strings to drag it back. So I check side to side, check my application, make sure it's nice and smooth. You can also scrape some of it off on the tip and then allow the gel polish to self-level again. Or you can use the string technique to kind of bring it back. And don't worry too much about perfection, because as we move through the appointment, we can absolutely use our top coat to perfect anything else that we need to do. So there's my second coat. I'm going to cure that. If I was to give you guys one piece of advice, it would be keep moving through the service, especially if you're someone working in a salon setting. I find that nail techs get so hung up on stuff and they just spend 45 minutes perfecting one little area. Keep going, because even if you have a little bit of a divot, as you might have seen in some of my other videos when I've done my own nails, even if I have a teeny little divot, it's going to get covered up as I move through my different layers. And my top coat I can absolutely use to camouflage anything at the very, very end. So don't get discouraged and don't get too fixated on one area of your appointment. That is a huge time killer. All right, so I have my top coat, my two coats of color, and I'm going to do my top coat. Wow, that's like a tongue twister. 2 coats of color and top coat. And let's do a matte one this time so you guys can see. So I'm going to use a matte top coat. With matte, oftentimes you want to shake this really well to distribute the matte effect throughout the product. And you want to be very cognizant of making sure that you cover all of the color, because if you have a little, especially with black, if you have a little perimeter of color that didn't get coated, you're going to see this little shiny line, and then you're going to see the matte effect. And it's very obvious with dark colors. And every time I cap the free edge, if I cap here or cap the sides like so, I always try to go back over it to smooth it out so I don't end up with a little ridge. Okay, and using my line of light again, or my reflection, and then I'm going to cure that for 30 seconds. Something as simple as switching out matte top coat for shiny can absolutely change the effect of a color. I think it's really fun to play with matte and shiny top coats. Sometimes even in between fingers on the same manicure, you can do a couple fingers matte. Typically non-dominant fingers are the best if you're going to do that, because thumbs and pointers often get contact with lotions, oils, makeup, all kinds of stuff that tends to change the matte effect. It can be easily fixed just by having the client scrub their nails with dish soap at home or using some alcohol wipes to strip all the oil off. But if you're going to do kind of one of those shiny and matte mixed together effects, doing these 2 fingers with matte is much better than doing them on here. So I would do like shiny, shiny, and matte. That's kind of fun to play around with. All right, so it still looks shiny because I haven't cleaned it yet. So I'm going to take my wipe with cleanser. And again, I'm going to really do a good job of scrubbing the nail and pulling away from the skin so that I don't get any inhibition layer on my client's finger. And there you have a perfectly matte nail. So it is fun to play around with shiny and matte. I love the matte effect. I think it just completely changes the whole look of the color. And as a last step, and I know a lot of you are going to go, Liz, what are you talking about? I was taught not to break the seal. I do like to gently, gently file the nail at the very, very end. If you notice, even with the thinness of the application here, at the very end of the nail, after all that capping, it looks like I've got a little hump on this corner. And same thing here, the corners look like they've got more product. So I like to take my same nail file and just very, very gently at like a 45-degree angle. So rather than doing it, if this is the finger and this is the nail file, rather than doing it straight up like this, I actually tip it under and kind of undercut the nail. And I like to do it just under, just a teeny bit to kind of perfect that final free edge shape. And it just makes it look so perfect and sharp, like that. Okay, see how it kind of took off that hump that I had? And then you can cleanse it one more time. But I think it just gives it a nice finished look. And this is something that a lot of people go, oh my gosh, I'm breaking the seal. But if you look, I still have product on the end of the nail. And the breaking the seal thing really isn't as big of a deal as you think it is, especially if you're using high quality gel. So that is exactly how you do basic gel polish manicure with potted gel and with bottled gel. And we also played around with matte top coat today. I hope this is helpful for you guys. I know this is very simple. We're gonna get into sculpturing and all of those things. I have so many emails and comments of people being like, what about lifting? What about sculpting? Where do I put the apex? How do I do this? Blah, blah, blah. We're gonna get into all that advanced stuff, but I really wanted to start with the basics because I think if you don't have the basics down, it's gonna be very difficult for you to do any of the advanced stuff that I know a lot of you wanna get your hands on. So stick with me. We're going through this step by step. More videos to come. I hope this has been helpful. Practice, practice, practice. Definitely take the opportunity to practice on a practice hand, practice on yourself, practice on your feet, practice on your family members, your friends, hubbies, whatever. It's a great way to see if the gel actually lasts. And I think you guys have all the material you need to make this successful. So try it out, see how it goes, wear the product for at least 2 weeks solid. Even if you did the most horrible job, I want you to wear it for 2 weeks to see what happens. And this is gonna be a good learning opportunity for you, because if it lasts on you and it looks good on you, then you know for sure it's much more likely that it's gonna last on clients. The worst thing you can possibly do is experiment on everyone else and never try it yourself. Practicing on yourself gives you all the information you need about how it lasts, how it changes, what it looks like after 2 or 3 weeks of wear, okay? Thanks guys, see you next time. And as always, leave me a comment below if you have any questions, suggestions, anything. I know you guys have been enjoying these videos. I've been enjoying them making them, and I really look forward to more stuff for you guys here on YouTube. All right, bye.